Okay, Kashtuk Bowcraft here. Usually when I cut the knot or the slots for the broadheads, for the bone ones, I usually use three hacksaw blades. Just tape them together, and the reason why is because it gives you a little bit more thickness for the bone, because obviously bone is not as durable as metal. For metal, I usually use two broadheads or two hacksaw blades. But for bone, I typically use three. I also use three when I'm cutting the other nocks on the other ends for the string. But so what you want to try to do is get this thing as straight as you possibly can. And the first cut I just did it on the bandsaw. I drew a line and then cut it out with the bandsaw. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to widen the slot there with three hacksaw blades put together. And I usually don't taper or paint the shafts until after I get all that stuff done, but I don't know why I went ahead and painted it, but I just got in the zone and I just wanted to go ahead and do it before I did anything else. So anyway, so there you go. Because the shafts, I usually leave them at full diameter so that you have some wiggle room. Obviously, when you're cutting at the tip, at the point, you might mess it up, but I did that with these ones, and that's just the way it is. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get it started, make sure it's centered. And it doesn't take long to do once that first cut is in there. But even though, you still want to make sure that you're cutting down as straight as possible, because you can still go crooked if you're not careful. And long strokes so you don't crack the wood. And then you want to go like this and like that, because it's easier to cut through rather than cutting straight across. Yeah, perfect. And then what I do, I get some sandpaper. In this case, it's 150 grit sandpaper, and I take the file or the bandsaw blades that are two of them together, so that the sandpaper can fit in between. I just sand it out and smooth it out a little bit. Just like that. So they'll look like that. They'll be wider. What I'm going to do, I'm going to flute the bone broadheads. I'm going to cut a flute into these so that when it sits inside the shaft, it'll fit there, and the transition between the shaft and the bone broadhead will be really smooth because it'll be more or less inset into the broadhead. So we're going to do that after I get the rest of these cut out, and then we'll do the final shaping of these broadheads. Okay, so we've got all three shafts, the slots widened with the three hacksaw blades glued together. And what I'm doing now is I'm fitting these broadheads to each shaft. Each broadhead has to be custom fit to each shaft because you know, they vary in thickness, and every shaft isn't cut exactly the same. These are all handmade items. So basically, you could see that I've fluted the broadhead on both sides. You want to try to get them fluted, you know, the same thickness. And I also like to bevel the back of the broadhead as well. You can see that it's kind of beveled here, so that way when it goes into the animal or the target, it's easier to pull out. You can certainly bevel the ends here as well. You know, cut them at a diagonal angle. But what I do, I just slightly round the edges and I bevel the back here. So, but this does not fit completely into the shaft yet. I've got to flute out some more on each side of this broadhead so that it'll fit in here more easily. Okay, so I'm going to do that right now and see how it works. Okay, so the way I do this is I just use a Dremel tool and I just go up and down on each side evenly until it fits in the shaft there. So I'm going to turn the camera off and get this done, and then we'll turn it back on again after I get it fit. Okay, as you can see that it's almost there. You just got to do it slowly because you don't want to crack the or split the shaft, and you want to make sure that the thing goes in as square as possible. Now you can see that there's some fluting that I've done. I just basically do it by eye. I don't measure anything out. I just get to where I think the middle of the thing is and just start digging away. It takes some time to do it. You not only have to make sure that you come up high enough, but you have to make sure you go wide enough too, because the width of the shaft will, you know, if your fluting is not wide enough, it won't go all the way into the shaft. So you got to make sure that you make them wide as well as long. Alright, so there you go. So there you go. You can see it's pretty straight. Sometimes they are straighter one way than another, and you can see that's kind of crooked, goes that way, but when I flip it over to the other side, it's more straighter. I might have to bevel this out a little bit to get it straight, but so there you go. There's one arrowhead done. Like I said, I'm going to cut some little nocks here on the side, so when you bind it with the string, it'll have something to get onto. But that's pretty much a done arrowhead. Okay. Spin it. So there you go. I'm going to get the rest of these done, and when we're ready to wrap them, we will turn the camera back on. But that's pretty much how I mount these bone arrowheads. Okay, so we've got the broadheads all mounted. This arrow right here is a little crooked. I need to straighten that out a little bit. But they all spin pretty true. They're all sitting pretty much straight within their slots, and straight and square within their slots. Now what I'm going to do is cut the the slots, so when I sinew the arrowheads onto the shaft, they'll have something to grab onto. So I'm going to do that right now. I just basically eyeball it again, you know. I'll come probably around this low on the sides here, so that I can get most of that extension covered with sinew when I apply it. So there's the bone arrowheads, and like I said, we'll get the this little slots cut, and we'll turn on the camera again when I get that done. Okay, I've got the little knock slots cut, and if you could see, I numbered the broadheads as well as the shaft. That way, while I'm working on the broadhead, I make sure I put it on the shaft that it came off of. You want to make sure that it gets on the proper shaft and that it's on the right side of the shaft. Anyway, so I was able to do that, and these are done. What am I going to do now? I'm going to what am I going to do now? I'm going to probably do the turkey feathers now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and get that set up, and then when I get it set up, I'll show you how I do that. Before I go on to the next step, what I want to do is get these bone points shined up and finished really nicely, so that when I glue them in, I won't have to deal with that later. So basically what I do, I get some 220 grit sandpaper, and I'll just sand down, or sand and smoothen out the surface of the bone. It's kind of hard to get a hold of this stuff when you have fat hands like me, but so basically I'll just sand it down, because you want these bones to be really smooth. The smoother they are, the better. That way they'll slide right through whatever it is you're shooting at. And then once I get it sanded with the 220, I'll come over it with a steel wool. Like that. It's pretty smooth now. And then what I'll do, I'll bring it over to my buffer over there and buff it out so that it's really, really smooth. So that's how I finish up these broadheads before I glue them on and haft them onto the shaft.